All right, we are live, guys. Good to see you all again. CTO, you're looking like you're enjoying the summer. Marty,
yeah,
love the green screen. Looking good too.
Hey guys, nice to see you all.
Good to see you too. I noticed that you put out videos every single day of the week. I was on YouTube yesterday, and you came up. You're relentless with your video making. I'm a big fan of the channel. No, James.
No, James is like a machine. James is a machine.
This is just another day of the week for him. Like
this is the easy day. This is the easy day because you guys can do some of the talking. So
yes, indeed. I am going to be hosting again today. I think me and James have been going back and forth on this, but we'll be putting it out to the rest of the boys probably from next week. But we've got a packed show for today. I don't know if we have all the show topics up already, but we're going to be following through obviously what happened in terms of the pump over the last week. CTO, I know you thought we had some strength there. I know Marty, you were also saying that this was the obvious dip to buy. We've obviously gone up quite a lot over the course of the last week, which has been a pretty nice bounce. Where we should looking at in terms of resistance levels, we'll go to CTO for that. What's been going on with Telegram? Obviously, the founder got arrested. Is this the end of Tron? Things going multi-chain. We've seen a lot of activity move on to Tron, which is the ecosystem around Justin Sun. Also, Binance Smart Chain has seen a lot of DEX volume. AI coins have been pumping. We've got NVDA results this week, so we're going to be talking a little bit about those. JLP hitting an all-time high. NFTs potentially coming back, and whether you should be worried about anything going into September, which is traditionally a bit of a wobbly period for markets. All right, we should get started on what's been going on just in terms of the bounce, guys, because I think I didn't really see it coming this strongly. We had a period of basically chop for about a month. We were hanging out around 60K when we did the show last week. And then kind of on Friday, we had two very key pieces of news. We had RFK dropping out and endorsing Trump. And then we had a very dovish speech from Jerome Powell at Jackson Hole, which was kind of expected, but it did seem to be just enough to set the spark going in crypto. Everything moved slightly higher. James, I'll go to you first. What do you feel about the market? Were you expecting this sort of like a violent move? I thought we'd still be in chop for a little bit longer.
Well, I did expect to move up, but not perhaps this much. I think last time we were all together last Monday, the price was what, 58,000. Now we're like it's $5,000 higher, but we're still literally we just breached the 200-day moving average right now. So a little market maker wick down, flush out a little bit of maybe leverage longs. I'm not sure exactly why the reason, but we had a couple of things happen all at the same time. First of all, we are under the 200-day moving average, which means the time to buy. We had negative funding rates, which is a bullish sign. And then we had the big surprise, as you mentioned, the Federal Reserve announcing, okay, we got inflation licked now. Now we're worried about jobs. We're going to cut. I mean, talk about telegraphing. He said, we're going to cut. The question is how much? Is it 25 or 50? I think when they go through some of the data, they'll see the job unemployment is going to go straight to 5 to 6%. There's no stopping that because even if you cut rates and you pump the market full of money, it doesn't stop the job loss. And it takes a long time for that to come back. And I hope they realize that. They're normally very late in, very late out, etc. Plus, we had the political developments. And I know people hate to hear about politics, but crypto and politics are inextricably linked. And literally 30 minutes before rumors were around that RFK was going to drop out of the race, Bitcoin popped because people knew what that meant. And we know RFK's view on digital assets, and we know that some of the politicians are kind of pandering to Lord Bitcoin right now. So I think it was those four things helped this bump.
Yeah, what did you think? What did you think, Marty? I know you were bullish on a range of different things. Really, you were talking about just having confidence at this sort of point. Liquidity was going higher. It did just feel like we just needed a bit of a spark when funding was that low or even negative. And sentiment was that low.
I've been watching the global liquidity really the most. I watch US, Japan, Russia, India, and the EU together. It's 90.42 trillion today. And on July 27th, there was some kind of an event. It leaped from 87 and it's just going skyward right now. the same time, the dollar is dropping. It's at 100.7 today. So I just think in those situations, we're looking like we're at the beginning of the next liquidity cycle. And, crypto is a sponge. And so that will happen. I remember I called 5x long last week. So just don't remember, I would be up. Yeah, as far as the RFK thing, I think that was the right thing to do. I was hoping he would do it. It's a patriotic move. We all know it's a dual party system. Him doing it and acknowledging Trump, saying all the things that Trump's been saying, I think is very good for crypto and for politics in the US. Get a little bit of hope going. And as far as the rest of the world goes, I mean, obviously the Telegram thing is shocking. It's definitely another Andrew Tate type strategy. Fear did its job. The poor Tron holders paid the price. But I long the bottom. I think it's going to go back. As I always say, these things have nothing to do with the blockchain. You can do what you want in the real world. It doesn't really change the software. Tron is a good chain, and it's got a good future, and I'm optimistic it recovers.
It's interesting to see that the funding has still stayed very low if you kind of go down, even in this bounce. So it does feel as though this move might still have a little bit more legs. There was a lot of talk about liquidations and funding being so low that you could liquidate all the shorts, but it still hasn't really gapped up. It's gone very, very slightly positive. But do you still think we have legs here over the short term? Do you think we need to consolidate here? I don't know. It feels like we could squeeze maybe up to 66, 67K when I look at like the liquidation map.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I just been on the same weekly, you guys have seen it on my posts, the same weekly. TA and CTO will probably agree. We've been in this large cup and handle, and the handle part takes a long time to establish. So it's basically just a range, and it's going to go between 58 and 72, probably all the way to the election. I would say, guys, I'm still sticking with that. So it'll be lower high, higher low, lower high, higher low, higher low. Absolute tension, and then either they'll pull the carry trade, the shorts, and will fly up just naturally, organically with buying, or there'll be a supply shock. They'll induce the supply shock and shoot it up. I think that's what's going to happen. Obviously, it could come down, but I think they're building this tension to the election, using it perfectly, all the way in. Perfectly. That's what I think. I'll stick with that till we change. If we break out of that range, guys, I'll be the first to say I'm surprised. In other words, a higher high or lower low.
Right. CTO, what do you think? Particularly from like a resistance level, maybe bring up the chart for three of them would be good to see.
Exactly. So the past couple of weeks here, I've really looked for some bullish signs in the Bitcoin chart because yields broke down. Yields broke below key resistance means that the market thinks that the yields are going lower or their interest rates are going to get cut. But we didn't really have it. But then finally, end of last week, we got these super clear bullish signals. We had this formation, which is, it looks like both an Adam and Eve, an inverse head and shoulder pattern with this very clear, well-defined boundary. We broke up here. So I feel that the market structure has on this is short time frame, so a little less reliable, but this is a definite change. Suddenly, we're building these very bullish patterns, which confirm, which break up. So I think there's definitely strength in the market here the past week or so, which we haven't really seen in some time. And if we zoom out a little bit, we're still in this broadening triangle or consolidation channel, and we're kind of in the middle of it. And I think when that ends, when we break out of that, and I agree with Marty here, the key levels, the horizontal levels that I'm watching, it is where we turned the previous times, which is about 71,400. If we break above that, okay, guys, it's a whole different ball game. Then I think we've finished this half-year consolidation and we're moving higher. And this pattern that we see now, it's actually very strong. So I think that the market looks great here. I'm more positive to the Bitcoin chart, seeing more positive signs than I've seen in a long time, actually. I think this looks great. And I'm pretty excited at this point of the market. And many of the altcoins have turned around also. Many altcoins that have been in downtrend for basically half a year, suddenly making signs of life. So yeah, I think the consolidation is finishing up. And perfect time to dust off your trading desk, guys, and get back in the game.
Yeah, that's an interesting sentiment, because I think that's something that I've really picked up on over the last 24 hours in crypto. Like, it feels as though I've seen a lot of these sort of takes, seeing how many coins are flipping their short to midterm market structures back to bullish. It's probably time to start paying attention if you weren't already. Daily trends mostly still down, but we have to start somewhere. It does feel, and then more of these. The Bitcoin bull market is officially back on, according to the IFP index. You've got Rec Capital, which is a very popular account, saying we're close to the parabolic zone again on crypto. People like Ansem saying going through and look through the top 200 alts by volume on Binance, look for ones which have done a higher low, and then look for kind of an altcoin season on the back of that. A lot of these sort of takes that now, if you haven't been paying attention to crypto for the last 2 or 3 months, maybe even longer, now's time to lock back in. I personally thought that this was going to be delayed until like the election, maybe a week or two beforehand. James, you were saying last week that you thought it'd be sooner. Do you feel as though we're now entering that period?
Yeah, every bull run, what I've noticed over the bull runs, the crypto runs, people are getting more educated and they understand cycles better, and they begin to front run stuff. So, people used to talk, 6 months ago, a year ago, this was a left adjusted cycle or something. I think people now know it's like, okay, rate cuts are coming in September. It's an election year. Liquidity is going up. Bitcoin and other assets are real cheap right now. So everybody's kind of piling in, and they're coming back from their vacations. They're taking off their Hawaiian shirts, some people at least, and they're deploying. So I see some deploying happening now. So I think, yeah, the whole seasonality thing is coming forward. We'll talk more about September in a little while too, and why it may not be as bad as people expect.
I mean, also we saw, Mando, one more thing. We saw the mining costs went up. So usually when you see the miners' average cost of production go up, then they will have to obviously sell new Bitcoin at a higher price. I think that's finally triggered. There were a lot of indicators, but we've now got data from at least 3 large miners that the price is almost $72,000 with the energy cost right now.
That's a very important point.
Actually, that's different. I track that very carefully. The energy gravity fell. It fell.
The energy index at an all-time high right now. I look at the S&P BSC energy index. What do you guys? Are you seeing energy coming down?
Yeah, I'm talking about
overall energy. Or you're talking at Bitcoin miners' costs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Man.
Yeah, I'm just talking purely Bitcoin miner costs, which I thought you were talking about. But the actual cost of electricity, because the hash rates come down, the cost of energy gravity now is about 47K, which is under 50K. It was 53K a couple of weeks ago. It has actually come down, but it's very volatile.
It has come down, yeah.
Yeah.
Why has that come down then?
Yeah.
Hash rates.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. So that means the miners are more profitable. And then there's been a lot of talk about staking reward, or not staking, Bitcoin staking, which jacked fees last week too in a big way to the highest or second highest level this year. And that's great for the miners for what will be Q3 earnings too. So the miners have actually rebounded too, like some altcoins and MicroStrategy and other names as well. So
yeah, we might as well just touch on that slightly. There was a protocol which launched, which is Babylon, which has allowed for native Bitcoin staking, and that spiked some of the Bitcoin transaction costs. But this is now one of the various protocols that's trying to unlock Bitcoin DeFi, which is one of the, I would say, grails left in crypto. The DeFi ecosystem around Bitcoin is not that high, but they are now looking to launch Bitcoin staking, and that did push up the cost of transactions. So interesting to see if that develops from here. In that world,
I've got the thing here. Sorry, guys, it's me. Just picks up Marathon. This is their latest report. They said it costs. This is really interesting. It costs $50,640 total mining cost, and then $36,000 is the costs less revenue. So if you take that difference, you can see that the actual expenses, you are in fact right. The cost of energy went down from what I have in my spreadsheet. So yes,
that'll be the Q2 earnings. All right.
$43,000. You were right. $43,000 roughly to mine a Bitcoin.
All right. Well, coming down, I guess, is less bullish, or at least it means that the miners are making money again. But who knows? We will move on slightly though to what's been going on in altcoins, and I think the number one, because people are now starting to look at it. You know, like if we're now saying people are coming back from holiday, the market's starting to heat up. Bitcoin looks like it will go. I saw a lot of takes about looking at altcoins. Tron was one of those coins that a lot of people were looking at, and suddenly over the weekend we saw the founder. Pavel Durov, who obviously has a history in kind of social media in Russia and then moved to the UAE after that basically got shut down, taken over by the Kremlin. He did a ICO for Telegram back in the day, back in 2017. That also got shut down by the SEC. Then they launched the open network, the Tron coin, which is basically using Telegram as for all of its top of funnel use cases of its apps, but is a slightly independent in terms of it's built around a foundation, an offshore trust, that sort of thing. He got arrested in France over the weekend, various different charges relating to what's been going on his platform that may have been helping things like money laundering, terrorism. And there's been a lot of hot takes on the back of this, that it's kind of, we've seen these sort of takes from the EU over the last few weeks. Like they've been having shouting matches with Elon about what he's been saying about what's been going on in Europe, and then to now see this guy get arrested in France, I think, well, it's not a great trajectory, I think, for free speech or free expression in the world. What did you guys? I think Marty, we'll start with you. Yeah, what did you make of all this?
I mean, I know I don't know if people are aware, but the first coin they made was called Gram, and Tron stands for Telegram Open Network, so it actually is very associated with Telegram. So I think it's a very interesting case. First of all, there's probably a lot more to it than we realize. Second of all, they did have the largest ICO in history. I think it was $1.7 to $2 billion was raised. The SEC was obviously shocked and didn't like any of that. They had to scrap the Gram token, and they restarted as the Tron token. So, you know, this isn't just out of nowhere. This is a long torment history between Pavel, Telegram's free speech, different jurisdictions, and obviously his blockchain. So I'm not shocked that it happened. I think a lot of people were more shocked than I was. I don't think it will affect the actual software side, which is now taken over by open source developers. But Telegram itself is where I get worried because, you know, I mean, X is how I make my living. It's what I do every day. It's where I run my community. And I just think this is the gravity of the way they did this speaks that this is a larger scale operation against, you know, free speech, social media. And that worries me a little bit. Obviously, I think Elon Musk will get involved. We'll see I'm waiting for his official statements on how he's going to react to this. But we are dealing with a free speech war at this point around the world, especially in the Western world. And I think this is how it manifests right here. Same with Andrew Tate. It's the same mechanism.
What did you think, James?
Yeah, I was very fired up yesterday. I actually took pen to paper like at 8 o'clock last night. I don't know if this is sharing, but I actually wrote a very long kind of newsletter on exactly this. And a lot of people, you don't realize what's happening until you put it all together and have a view around the world. So this is called, it's a free paper to everybody, Free Speech in Peril, Global Perspective. It talks about all the top people in the world. We're talking RFK, Shadow of Ezra, Mert from Solana, Vitalik chimed in, you know, code is free speech, Geiger Capital. David Sachs called it. David Sachs said TikTok will be banned by the US government, then Telegram, then X, then Rumble. I hope he's not right because, of course, Marty, you depend on X. And then media and misinformation, absence of speech, not just free speech, France, rest of Europe. And this was probably the most poignant thing for me from Ava was we should be the ones knowing everything about the government, not the other way around. And then an American warning. And then, of course, you know, Ross being locked away in a cage for the rest of his life. No chance of parole. Dying without dying is what they call it. Politics, despot time. I mean, it is shocking exactly all the stuff that's going on right now. And people somehow do not see what's happening. As if they don't care, they're checked out. And I don't understand that, because this impacts everything. And I know full well, because I was banned from YouTube and shadow banned for saying one sentence 3 years ago. One little sentence. I won't say what it's about, because I don't want this to come off the air. But that stuff can happen. So we have been muzzled. But the goals of the governments around the world, they're telegraphing it more and more. And I know as well, I'm very acutely aware that free speech can sometimes incite violence if the wrong players are sharing stuff. And there's other angles too about France. People are saying, well, it's because, pro-Russia supporters are using Telegram to communicate when they're at war in Ukraine. Same thing with Hezbollah and other channels. But at the same time, it's like a cell phone. You can't block communications. There'll always be nefarious actors communicating. And I think it's a really tricky situation. But I fear that governments are using this as an excuse to muzzle everybody. And that is not good when you cannot speak openly and honestly.
It's something that's at the core, I think, of crypto, which has happened a few times, which is like, you've seen this with now with Telegram. You saw it with, like you said, Ross Ulbricht, which was the Silk Road, which is very early on. And you've seen it with Tornado Cash recently as well. Like, devs are being charged for the crimes of the users that use their technology. And that is maybe slightly a dangerous precedent. At the same time, I guess the question is, I mean, it's very, very clear that Telegram obviously had illicit and illegal activities, or at least communications being made on it between people. That much is clear. Part of the reason for it is end-to-end encryption. So people like to be able to have those sort of conversations without governments listening in on them. And I think what I find difficult here is there's a very narrow thread here where people are very against things like terrorism, human trafficking, like let's say child pornography, like the very serious crimes that happen in our society. And yet they also want to have free speech. When those crimes are happening on these platforms, is it impossible to kind of want both at the same time? Yeah. And what do you think, CT? I know you're from Europe. We're both from Europe, where this is kind of happening. Like, how do you kind of thread that needle?
I've spent a lot of time thinking about this topic. So if you build a tool and then someone uses that tool to do something illegal, are you built the tool then a criminal or not? That is the core of this question. And since we built the telecom system, of course, not me only, there's like a huge community effort, but we kind of were in that situation, right? So we built a tool, and then people will use cell phones for coordinating crime, coordinate a bank robbery or coordinate a kidnapping or something like that. And we built the tools. Are we criminals then? I feel that is very close to the situation we have now. So Elon Musk has a social media network, X. Perhaps people will use that to, do some crimes or some kind. Is Elon Musk then a criminal? Will he get arrested in Europe for not taking appropriate action? And same thing here. Pavel built this messaging app. People use it to coordinate crimes, probably. So should Pavel be thrown in the jail and never be looked back? And if you look at historical precedent, it has not been like that. Someone invented the wheel. The wheel is arguably a useful invention. You can use it to drive to work, but you can also use it for your getaway car after the bank robbery. So because of the wheel, the criminal got away, and then the inventor of the wheel should be locked away. If taking it to the extreme, that seems bizarre. Of course, it can't be like that. It can't be that anyone who invents something useful that can both be used for legitimate, useful purposes in society, but probably also for crime.
Is it the same as that?
Cannot be locked up.
Just to quickly interject, like, isn't it more similar to, you built the wheel, but then you also have the data of the crime that's been committed. Like, you're basically tracking the person who's robbed the bank. Like, where that guy is at the same time as well. Like, there's some ongoing liability there because you actually have the data on these people?
Exactly. The argument is then that you should have known at least. You should have installed some kind of tracking device in every wheel so you can keep track of who is using it and be able to shut down the wheel if it doesn't work. And I mean, in fairness, in the telecom system, we do have something like that. There is a system, standardized system called lawful intercept. So if there is an active kidnapping going on, some kid has been kidnapped, it is possible with the correct court order to go after that person. And that, I feel, has worked reasonably well. Over these decades, we've had the telecom system. I don't think anyone is that upset about it. It has kind of worked well. But it is a clear process. It cannot be like some politician just don't like someone and can start listening in on that person's phone call. No, that needs a court order. Otherwise, the mobile operator isn't going to tap that line. There is a clear system. Here, it's all crazy. Like the politicians themselves are writing letters to Elon Musk and like, I think you should do this or not do that. And he's like upset. There's no debate. There's no system. It's all crazy. And they go arrest people. They arrest the developers. The guy who programmed it, he's the criminal. And I feel that it is so crazy, the point our society have come. Why don't we have like a public debate of how is society going to function so that we can both enable legitimate use, free speech, but also, find the kidnapper or whoever it is that we need to find, that we probably mostly agree on that person should be, locked up. But I don't think it's the developer who is the criminal. It's the criminal who is the criminal. And that has gone haywire the past year or couple of years. And I'm very upset about it, actually, just like James.
Yeah, I used the statement, the situation where a human being can be arrested should be totally decoupled in every way from decentralized open source software running on thousands of computers around the world. There is literally, like, common sense says there is no connection. Remember, these blockchains and Telegram and these networks, they're like, garden hoses. Their job is to move water from one side to the other effectively without a leak. They don't care who turned the tap on. They shouldn't care. And I think that the government is convinced that the people building the software have ulterior motives, working for bad people. I think this comes from the wars, from the different generational gap. There's this inherent fear of technology through the leadership. They're 70, 80, 90 years old. They still think technology is some agenda. They can't understand public sector technology. They don't understand X is used for good and bad. They don't understand Telegram is used for good and bad. They just think it's bad. And I feel like even CrowdStrike, let's be honest, guys. The CrowdStrike thing, for those who don't know, CrowdStrike is a piece of software that runs on every Windows server in the world and is used to protect those endpoints from malicious behavior. But then all of a sudden it went down and the whole world pretty much collapsed for 4 days. And they patched a new version, said sorry, and put it back up. It feels like they installed a kill switch. It feels like they installed some form of cybersecurity against the network itself, not protecting from the outside. And I feel like that's what's going on. They want to protect, they want to control because they believe the intentions are bad. And this is a generational problem. And I think this might be, well, I guess the ultimate one will be Elon Musk. When they come for X in any way, we will see the full wrath of Elon Musk's judicial power. And it'll go to the Supreme Court and it'll go to the World Court. This is just a precursor to it. I feel this is a taste of what's to come. But these networks are not responsible for bad actors. These networks are simply technology to send a message from one person to another anywhere in the world reliably. And what they're used for, it's like a highway. It's like saying we should ban the highway because one bad person drove down it. You don't do that. It's just not the way we do it.
And so, when the governments come in to try and censor it, like they've shown time and time again, they can't be trusted. Like, I think what you're saying, CTO, and what you're saying too, Marty, is you can't have that perfect world, because whenever the government tries to come in and say, hey, just, we only want to use this in bad scenarios. Well, what is the bad scenario? And are those deals even made public? A lot of this stuff is that you don't even know that your data is being listened to by these three-letter agencies for your own safety. So people don't like that sort of unvetted power. I think it's a question that's going to be around a lot, particularly if like social issues continue to blow up as well throughout the world, which they kind of have been over the last few years. I feel as though we're going to head towards these sort of battles around the technology being used. Maybe we just have public conversations more and more. But yeah, James, I read through your piece. Super interesting. I think it's a debate which we're all going to have to take pretty strong sides on. I don't really feel it's going to change. Bring it back to crypto slightly. You bought the Tron coin on the back of this. I looked at it and actually thought, I was surprised it wasn't down more. Like, it's still at a $28 billion market cap. Telegram's is its main top of funnel. I just kind of looked back at when XRP got its SEC notice and just thought, shouldn't this thing be down like 50%? But do you think it's going to bounce from here? I just kind of felt like so as far as I'm aware, he owns the keys to Telegram, to the end-to-end encryption with his brother, right? So he's like one of two halves of potentially the keys to that encryption. Are we going to start seeing Telegram get banned in the EU and like in some of these countries? Is this a problem for Ton?
I mean, I personally believe that Ton was due a pullback, and market makers are just, like I always say, hunting for reasons to pull back. And this was just an absolutely perfect reason to pull back. It pulled back almost exactly the $1.08 that it should. It just happened very violently and fast. And I think it'll trade back up. I don't think it affects Ton at all, personally. I bought long. I went long at the very bottom. I've got a dream position. If it holds, I'll be extremely happy.
In fact, it's bouncing nicely off the 200-day moving average, and it was at this place on the 5th of August. So it wasn't hit at all, which is surprising.
Yeah, I guess the two questions there is, do we think Telegram as a app is under threat here, or do we think it's more just the founder? And then, secondly, I guess app development. He owns 100% of Telegram, as far as I'm aware, right? This isn't just like a CEO.
Mondo, in my opinion, this is all about, we want you to make these changes. No, I won't, for free speech. Okay, what about these changes? No, under no circumstances. Okay, we're going to arrest you. There needs to be a level of compromise on both sides. Elon Musk did it. He changed a lot in X, actually. We just don't know it, to conform to the US requirements for each state. And Telegram has Pavel's always refused to do anything. We've known that a long time. Now, if you use Telegram every day, you know there are bad actors on Telegram. Telegram is the home to a lot of scammy things. We know that. But it's also the home to a lot of wonderful things. So this is, once again, this whole governance model where if a minority does something wrong, the majority pays for it. Instead of where you govern for the majority, keep the majority happy, and deal with the small amount of users. And this goes all the way to politics in general. That's how I feel like all these countries are getting governed. It's like one person does something wrong or has a special need, then the laws are enforced across that everyone, the majority, needs to pay the price, and everything must change for everyone, instead of the most people use it happily and dealing with the problem areas. And I think that's where we are now. I think Telegram is in trouble. Telegram, the messenger, not in trouble. They're going to bring it down. In trouble, it won't be as secure.
This is what people are betting on already.
Yes, go ahead.
Crypto have decided that he's a 36% chance that he will get out already in August. Polymarket directly taking bets on this sort of stuff, as you would expect in crypto. I think I saw already today, Macron has kind of washed his hands of it, said this isn't political at all, it's only judicial. There was some, comments, I think, by Russian officials saying this is politically motivated. There were some questions about, he's been doing recent trips into like Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. The Russian officials had to deny that he met Putin in those sort of places. I don't know about all of this, but to me it feels pretty political. he was a French citizen, which I think is quite interesting. I read about that, so that's probably why he kind of went to France. But I kind of agree with your take, Marty. I think that there will hopefully be some form of a deal here. I don't know if that deal will be palatable or public, though, which I think is something to be
I found a little bit of a litmus test you can all use out there. If you want to know if there are any, sort of top-level regulatory concerns with a network, a blockchain, just have a look at where Circle is issuing liquidity. If Circle is issuing liquidity on a chain, typically it's past regulatory level 1 clearance. And Tron never got on Circle. They never put liquidity on Circle. And I always wondered why. And you couldn't buy it on Coinbase, right? It wasn't on Coinbase. And
it was about to go on Binance.
USDC.
I think it's just gone into Binance, yeah.
Right. And I think those two things represent the sort of the entry gate into the world of regulation. And Tron just was never in either of those gates. It was never considered on Coinbase, and Circle never put USDC on it. So I always knew, and that's why I didn't commit a lot of money to it. That's just my investment principle. If USDC is not putting liquidity, trusting you, because I know Jeremy and I know his staff, and they do this due diligence. If it doesn't pass their first due diligence, what they're saying is there could be future regulatory issues, and I don't invest in chains that they don't put liquidity on. So that's why I protected myself, thank God. But I might have been wrong, and everything could change. But I still went long rather than buy spot. That's where I am with Tron right now.
I think that's a really good point, and we'll move on to. It actually leads quite nicely into the next big thing that kind of happened in crypto this week, which was there was a lot of talk about Tron. So we had Ton, and then there's Tron. Now Tron is the chain which is associated with Justin Sun, who's kind of an infamous character in crypto. He leads HDX, which used to be Huobi, which is one of the main exchanges in Asia, and has kind of been involved in a few different nefarious projects, I would say. There's been a lot of questions about the liquidity / solvency of various of the projects he's been involved in the DeFi space. Even HDX itself got questioned quite a few times. Anyway, huge amount of volume started trading on Tron this week. We saw a lot of meme coins started trading, and there's a lot of things that started to be shared about the amount of money that Tron is making as an exchange. I saw this tweet, which is Tron is basically up only this year. It's up about 70% now, and has also generated the most fees out of any crypto protocol over the last 90 days. I did not realize any of this. What is going on? So it has made $440 million of fees over the last 90 days. It's outpacing ETH. It's outpacing Solana. You can see it's outpacing even any of the DApp protocols itself. This is a chain where, as you just said, Marty, Circle does not issue any coins, but Tether has around $60 to $70 billion of stable coins on the Tron network. The large majority of this is for stable coin transfers. That being said, it's only sitting at about $14 billion FTV, and you're now starting to see a bunch of meme coin trading actually moved up there. You saw meme coins, some meme coins hit like $300 million in a week there. Everything is named on Tron after Justin Sun. So you have Sun Pump is their version of Pump.fun. You have Sun Swap, where you do all the DeFi, all the meme coins. I think Sun Dog was the main meme coin. Everything is all around Justin Sun. Now, James, I know you look at every single one of these coins. I think the main question here was that the SEC has been investigating Tron for the last 5 years. And he's still under investigation. A lot of those stable coins are also meant to be, let's say, dodgy. They're often in sanctioned countries or countries where there's capital controls, and there's a lot of questions about, why or where all this tether is being moved around. Would you ever look at Tron? I think you can't even buy it in the US, but it's beating every single L1 for fees. That's for certain.
Yep. Yeah, and basically it powers half of Tether. Tron is the leader in fees, but it's all stablecoin transfers and wallet-to-wallet transfers. So it's what I would refer to as maybe a one-trick pony, but it does power Tether. I think the cost to transact on Ethereum with Tether is about $3.50. The cost on Tron is about $1.30. And cost efficiency is a crucial factor, especially for regions where financial resources are limited and people rely on stablecoin transfers. But that is where the fees come from. The fees haven't even hit from all the sun.pump, whatever fun stuff and meme coins. It's not even on the radar yet. But this is all stablecoins. Powers Tether. Now, what happens? So I always try to look ahead. What happens when another chain can do stablecoin transfers for a fraction of a penny? That kills Tron, just like Tron killed Ethereum.
Well, I think the question about this more is they allow transfers in sanctioned countries.
Yep.
The reason why you want to pay those fees is because no questions are asked on the Tron network, essentially, and so fees become slightly less important. So maybe Solana gets a bit of that pie too, but it does feel like that's one of the main things about Tron. That being said, like a lot of the left curve, 10x, 100x sort of plays have been done there in the last week. I know that's not something that we often dance around in, but it's been interesting to see because I think a lot of this has been happening on Solana, and suddenly Sun Pump is driving. Yeah, sorry. Thanks. Is driving a lot of this revenue. Sun Pump overtook Pump.fun, which we've spoken about a few times in terms of daily revenue. You saw, I think, at least 2 different memes go to like 300 million in a week. And a lot of this meme coin trading, just kind of bringing it back to Solana, is going multi-chain. And that's something that has changed over the last week. When everyone has been trading for the last few months on Solana, primarily for meme coin trading, it's moved to Tron and it's moved to Binance Smart Chain to a lower amount, but definitely Tron. So I don't know here. It's difficult for people to buy, but I do think it's one of these ones where it could also catch the chart looks pretty good. It's up like 70% this year, and it's still 14. It's only trading at 14x or 10x roughly. I would even say fees, right? Like if it's making over $1 billion of fees, it's trading at 14 billion. It's not a bad PE ratio. Did you look at this on the chart side, CTO?
Yes. Yeah. So I think Tron is a lot more popular than people realize in the West, especially in many Asian countries. They kind of like this proposition with lower fees and permissionless. And then many people, they don't care how decentralized it is. If Justin, Tron is controlling the network or not, most people don't care. So it has indeed been going up a lot this year. But I think the better way to understand what's happening with this chart is actually to switch to the TRX to BTC chart, because then we see something interesting. That not much has actually happened with this network since 2019. We're talking 5 years ago. It has remained in this range, except one time when it fell out and then quickly came back. And the move here from the bottom of this range to the top of the range is only, in quotation mark, 2x approximately. So for 5 years, compared to Bitcoin, Tron has remained in this range almost, except this brief period. And right now, it's just in the middle of that one. So as dramatic as it feels the past 1 week or past 1 month or even this year, not that much has happened actually for the Tron network. So that's how I see this. It's moving up from the bottom of the range towards the top of the range. And clearly there's been a range play going on here over quite many years. Probably a lot of people have made a lot of money here. And now it's kind of moving up again. But most of this rise that we're seeing here in US dollar value is simply a result of Bitcoin going up during 2023. And a little bit lifting off that parabola. But that's how I see it. So I don't see it as so dramatic, but I also observed the same thing as you did, Mando, that there is a renewed talk about Tron, Binance Smart Chain, this couple of weeks.
Yeah, just to linger on that slightly, because that was going to be kind of the next point. We have seen a lot of the meme coin trading at least move to other networks. I know Solana is more than just memes, but a lot of people have been speaking about this as the time to rotate into other L1s. You know, we've kind of touched on that before with SUI recently, but this week you saw big gains with things like AVAX. I think Matic had a big game. That's an L2. You had Near had a big gain. That's slightly AI related, but a lot of L1s started to heat up. Was there any of the charts there which you liked? Because I feel like myself, Marty, James, we all kind of like Solana. But is there anything on like the L1 charts which you picked up, or any like maybe even versus Sol or versus ETH, which look like interesting pairs?
I did observe the same thing as you, exactly what you said here. AVAX, Near, many of these charts, they did have a change. But again, looking at Solana to BTC, frankly, not much has happened this week. It's like a little bit ripple up and down, but if you zoom out, you can barely see it. So I don't really see, while it emotionally felt the same, I felt that there is perhaps a rotation. You can't really see it in the chart, right? If you look at this, that's like a nothing burger so far. If this support would break, the 0.002 support on the SOL to BTC chart, I feel that has been the play for the whole of 2024. That level has been furiously defended. If that should break, then it's a different situation. But it hasn't yet. It's about 20% up from that. But then if looking at many of the other charts, like AVAX, that has been in this like seemingly never-ending downtrend, it did have a bounce. Even Matic had this bounce. Near, we have Near here somewhere. Link, I think, also had the same kind of bounce. Sorry, this was the USD chart. Phantom had the bounce. The Near is here somewhere also. Had the same. They kind of all look the same. All the other layer 2 charts to Bitcoin, they all look the same. They've had a quite substantial bounce, but it came from very established downtrends. So hard to say, is it really a trend shift, or is it like a relief bounce? I don't know. That was my conclusion here last Friday when I went through these. I can't really say. Like, will it turn out like this one? If you see here in July, we also had this kind of big recovery in many altcoins. Then turned out that it wasn't really a change of directions. And funnily, almost all of these charts, they look the same. They all look the same. It has nothing to do with if someone is a fan of a particular project. I can pick any chart here. They look all the same. All these charts, they all look the same. It's not about the project. It's that the market has had a relief bounce in the other layer 1s, and they all look the same. Probably I haven't even looked at ADA, but I could predict it before clicking. There's been a bounce there too. But will it be enough, or will it turn out something like this that it continues down afterwards? I don't know. Can't say yet. To wait.
Yeah, just going back to kind of what Ansem said, which is that tweet, which is he said, weekend homework for you guys. Mark out the July 5th, August 5th lows for the top 200 alts, and looks which ones have made a higher low. It's one of these ones where I know what you're saying. Like it's been such a horrific time to be calling for altcoin season, but maybe we could shift a little bit. I wouldn't say. I think Solana is such an obvious play here, even for the altcoin season. But I definitely it's on my radar now to look at some of these L1s that have started to outperform.
Oh, definitely. I mean, this could be the turnaround time.
Even if it's not fundamental, you know what I mean? Like, I think Solana is beating all of those for adoption, but it does feel like these could maybe go on a run if people start to get bullish on them. Obviously, unlocks are the main other side of that. The other main trend, and I think it's relevant for this week, is we've seen a bounce in a lot of the AI coins. We have NVDA results coming out in a couple of days, but pretty much all the top gainers over the last week in the altcoins, if you want an L1, was for AI coins. You had things like FET, which I think were up about 50%, Render, which is about 30%. I'll just share my screen to be able to see it, but definitely those were leading like the top 100 altcoins. Is there anything you look at here, Marty? Like, is FET on your radar? Render?
Let me just run back to the Tron. I didn't have a chance there. Tron, I've been researching Tron for days last week. And Justin Sun, this story passed. There are a couple of things with Tron that I think people are not aware of. First of all, can I share this screen, James?
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
How do I do that? Do I right click the
Just
thing, drag
Martin,
it?
there you go.
There we
Boom.
go. There you go. So, I mean, that in a nutshell, you don't need to really talk about anything else. Can you see what's going on? What Tron is?
China.
Okay. Tron is the other economy. It's
Yeah.
the stable coin and the network of the other economy, unregulated by US jurisdiction, Western jurisdiction. And some key events in the red areas are Russia has now made it law to pay for companies to pay cross-country settlements of trade with any of those red countries with any cryptocurrency. And I started picking up one day last week $1 trillion of value moved on USDT on Tron over the course of the day. And I started to say to everyone, hey, guys, what's going on? $1 trillion? I mean, if you just go to tronscan.org, it's their explorer. Right now, look at the size of the total transfer volume. It's a number you rarely see the size of. Okay, it's 13.5 trillion. So this Tron network, I think, is bigger than we realize. I think it could possibly have been picked up by the CCP and Russia as a means to do their international settlement with Tether. So yes, that's for Tron holders, that's fantastic. For LPs, that's fantastic. But I have tons of concerns. First of all, it has an algorithmic stablecoin. USDD, Justin Sun states, collateralized, used to be collateralized by Bitcoin, but he moved that Bitcoin, and now he said on Twitter, I'm now collateralizing with my own token.
Classic Justin Sun. It's classic Justin Sun.
It's a classic Sam Bankman-Fried setup he's creating. He's got his exchange HTX, he's got his network, he's got his FTT token, he's got his political, he's like on the diplomatic political side of Grenada, Bahamas, Grenada. It's donations, political money. There's
he gets
something
diplomatic immunity apparently if he
Exactly.
has that. That's where he said he got that.
Okay, anyway, that was that. Then as far as other altcoins go, I think that, like I said a few months ago, we're at that point in 2024 where you can no longer just have a blockchain that just stores value. Okay, if you're going to store value, you use Bitcoin. If you want to make a utility coin, you use Ethereum. And so a lot of these sort of EVM networks that copied Ethereum, changed a little bit here and there, but didn't really solve the execution layer, the speed of moving value, I think are in trouble. You know what they are. A lot of them, I think, just won't compete in their Bitcoin pair with other chains, which are rewritten to support the other problem, right? They're storing assets on a blockchain, which needs security and decentralization. And then there's moving assets, which is a totally different thing. That speed of execution, consensus for speed, extremely fast operating systems and programming languages. That's Solana, Sui, Near, Aptos, and so on. And I think those are going to shine with stablecoins. And we're getting to that point, I think, where we start to see fundamental valuation of crypto change from TVL and value locked to volume and success rate at volume, and things like that. Just a different way of doing it. And I think Solana will be the first. Sui will be one of them. Aptos has got a lot of weight. Near is being used unbelievably in Asia. And I think that's where we are. My biggest problem is layer 2s. I just don't know where they fit in. And I think people are starting to question that in Ethereum. And to me, that's the number one risk. So between Tron and Ethereum L2s, which is Wrap Bitcoin, remember? We spoke about this. Wrap Bitcoin also attached to Justin Sun. God knows where that Bitcoin's going to go between BitGo and BitGlobal. We don't know. Maybe it's going to collateralize his stablecoin on Tron. I don't know. But
he'll get away with anything that he can. That's Justin Sun to a T.
Go ahead, yeah.
What about going back to AI? Is there anyone in the panel want to speak about for the AI coins? Because they've kind of been the second major. Yeah, this is a really good way of describing.
So AI over the last month, in fact, ever since I guess the beginning of June, got hammered. You mentioned FET. FET got murdered, absolutely slaughtered. So if you look at AI over the last month, it's down 15%. that includes the last week. But if you look at AI over the last week, it is the strongest performing sector. And that's why it's very important to look at narratives and narratives that pump. Also, this is confluent with NVDA earnings coming up that people are bullish on. We'll talk about that in a minute too. So that's really the perspective you need to have. Don't look at people sometimes make a mistake. They chase the most recent pump. That's lethal. You got to get in before the pump and then sit and wait.
I know it's so high.
So AI has been still behind meme coin for like market for not market sentiment, but let's say market awareness in terms of altcoins. Is there, and I similarly, I'm not a big fan of AI coins, but is there any coin that anyone kind of likes that maybe want to talk? I know you guys look at a lot more of these altcoins. I thought FET was a recent merger of 3 different coins related to AI agents and AI oracles.
I think there's two that are interesting, and at least I've gone through them all, tested them all. A lot of them are complete smoke and mirrors. A lot of them are coins that pivoted to the AI narrative to get a pump. But there's 2 that are actually doing real work. That is Nosana and Render. And I think they're interesting. Render has been around. That's kind of like an OG AI play before AI was really a thing. And then Render have also partnered with Nosana for compute, which I think is interesting. And the market cap of Nosana is really small. So they're the 2 that I think are, one is steady, one has upside, are kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, Amanda, what do you define for the audience? What is an AI coin?
Well, that's a good point, because I think that's also what is the issue here. A lot of them are more like decentralized storage or like deep in decentralized infrastructure, which is a bit more like Render. Other than try to be like L1 friendly chains. So you have things like Near or even Sui to a certain extent. They're meant to be written in programming languages which are easier for AI to use. And then you have others which, quite frankly, just sound and look like scams. I think Tau would be another L1, which people say is slightly more like that. I'm more like James. I think the ones which are more like decentralized storage or ways which make better use of decentralized infrastructure, they can be better, but they also don't look amazing to me. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I have never bought an AI coin.
This is the problem. You see, what you just described is the lack of clarity of understanding makes it people sit on their hands a little bit about AI coins. But AI coins really are a misnomer, because you have an AI company, right? A group of people working on an AI problem. And then you have a token. And the token is supposed to represent some part of that operation. So it can either represent a capitalization, i.e. we raised money with a token to build some cool modeling stuff. But then regulatory says, well, you didn't register it as a security, so you can't do that. And we'll have to wait for that. So there's a little bit of risk. Then there's companies that actually built a network for their AI. So they made a decentralized network that does something, and then they have a layer 1 native token. And that to me is a good AI token. So you need to differentiate. Is the token just an ERC20 that in the future will offer dividends of our great AI company? Or is it sharing in the ownership? Or is it governance? Or is it it's the currency of our network, right, James?
The definition is real simple. They've got to be involved in leasing, compute, and inference capabilities. So if you need some GPU access, like a H100, you go to a chain that does it. That's key. There's others that just, as Amanda said, is just online storage, like Filecoin or something for a long time. That's not what AI is. So again, think of it as leasing access to a H100 in a decentralized blockchain way, period.
You just got to ask yourself, do they need a token? If a company doesn't need their own token, it shouldn't have its own token.
Well, that's how you pay for the compute. So when you pay for the compute, yes.
The problem is I can say you need Marty Party token to watch my show, but if Marty Party token is swappable for USDC, then I just need USDC to swap to Marty Party to use. Yep. You see, it's not it's not a gate. So because of the fungibility of crypto, Gary Gens is going to have a problem with those statements. In the future.
I think I can add one. I agree. Can I have one insight on the price action for the AI coins, if I can share my screen? So here's the NVDA. chart, which is kind of the locomotive of the AI industry at the moment. And this was like in a straight line up from 2022 here, straight line, straight line, straight line. Then if we zoom in, during last month, it looked like, oh, perhaps the journey is over. I think a lot of people got started taking profits here. It felt like, okay, perhaps this never-ending uptrend is over. And then the AI coins, which are kind of living on the back of the AI trend, they also dumped. They dumped really hard. Then, as you see here, it seems like, oh no, actually, perhaps it wasn't over after all. And this chart made this enormous recovery during the past couple of weeks. And then, a little bit delayed, the AI coins also recovered. So that's how I see this. They are kind of, the AI coins are largely a bet on the AI trend. And first it looked like that trend would take a break. Then suddenly it looked like, no, the trend will probably continue. Then they rebound. Then in terms of the AI coins, I think we haven't really seen it yet. I think the FET coin has some, they're trying to do some work. Render has been there for a long time. I don't know enough about Nosana, so I don't have any opinion. But I don't think we have seen the potential yet of the synergy between crypto and AI. But I'm sure it's going to come. We will get AI agents that have money, that can deploy smart contracts, that can do stuff on the internet, and will generate enormous value. Imagine that if you give this ChatGPT agents or something, imagine you give that thing real money, that it can go out on the internet and do stuff with, hire people, hire an accountant, do something, hire a lawyer to do stuff. Imagine what could happen. And that's the direction where we're going. And which money is the AI agent going to use? It's going to use cryptocurrency, obviously, because that's how you integrate with the software. And then add smart contracts into that for like auditability, for public scrutiny, and all those things. Imagine the potential. And that we haven't really seen that yet. It hasn't happened yet. But it could happen already this year or next year. And that's going to be the projects who actually manage to do that. That's going to be 1,000x coin if they have a coin. And that exactly my exciting.
That's my point.
Exactly.
I think that's fair. You both make a very similar point. Yeah, we're not quite there yet. It feels as though right now it's kind of reverse engineering how we can get crypto into AI rather than actually it being seamlessly being used. Even the things that you've said, like AI agents, yeah, they are going to want to use crypto, and some of the coins are slightly related to that, like FET is related to that sort of stuff. But at the same time, it doesn't quite feel like it's needed for a lot of these coins. I think that's where it often falls down. I think just to go through a couple more of the topics, because I think we'll end relatively soon. But two of the other left curve things, which I think are really kicking off in the last week, we had JLP, which we've spoken about a bunch of times on this show, making an all-time high. So well done for everyone who's in that. That's kind of DeFi, which has been we've spoken about, we've liked. It's obviously the yield token of Jupiter.
You got me into it, Mando.
Yeah,
you got me into it, Mando.
All-time highs for the chat, which is good.
I moved a lot of cash into it. I'm using it as a cash holding now.
Exactly. And you can borrow against it on Camino if you ever wanted to get liquidity. So you can do quite a lot with it. But that happened this week. And then the other thing I want to flag, which is kind of where I kind of came up, was more in NFTs. So NFTs has been not had a good cycle. There was a very well-known marketplace in NFTs called Blur, which was incentivizing traders in the space. And people said that was hurting floor prices because it was dragging them down. People were getting paid to own NFTs they didn't want, and they were just selling them lower and lower and lower. That whole incentive system has basically fallen away, and NFTs have all had a pretty big jump. So all the monkey JPEGs, all the more left curve stuff that was happening like last cycle, which moved to meme coins this cycle, is starting to heat up a little bit. It's something to be a little bit, I would guess, on your radars. If you were around last cycle looking at NFTs, there's been a bit of a bounce, and I would say that as someone who kind of knows that marketplace a little bit, I think it's this one could have a little bit more legs, or at least the risk reward is okay in that bit of the market. So time to maybe pay attention to that also alongside, let's say, memes or AI coins, wherever you want to do left curve stuff.
Mando, which chains do you see the action on? Which chains do you see the?
If you look at what actually happened, where that farming was happening on ETH. So it's ETH NFTs which have bounced. That is actually where you see the majority of the top collections. They were all kind of made last cycle when ETH was having its huge run and everyone was on ETH. But yeah, Bored Apes, if you've heard of those, CryptoPunks, Pudgy Penguins, they're all hitting higher highs after having not a great cycle. And I think people have been losing a little bit of money in meme coins over the last few months. And I think they're now looking at other chains, which is why we've seen Tron, Binance, seen a lot of meme coin trading, and they're now looking at NFTs again. So if you're looking for those kind of left curve gambles, I definitely think you should kind of re-engage that bit of the market. I think finally we're going to go into what's been going on.
I'd like to add one thing though, because it's very important. You mentioned JLP. Well, first of all, I don't know anything about NFTs, only that Marty has some for his DJ girls, which are pretty good. Anyway, JLP, is it pivot time? So when I first got into JLP, I was paying 121.8%. Then it went down to 80%. Then it went to 50%. Then it went to 31% about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Now it's at 21.85%. And I think the important thing here is when you have, an AI narrative going up more than 22% in a week, doesn't make sense to be in JLP when it only gets 21% in a year. And the message I want to share with the audience here is people will go risk on for more return. This is also going to happen with treasuries. When rates come down, people aren't going to be happy with 3.5%, 4%, and then they're going to go risk on. So the big question I have is it pivot time? Because when the return falls and you get more return in other assets, people will leave this again and the JLP pool will go up again. I think our problem is we made this thing too popular and now everybody's in there and there's not enough goodness to go around. It's being shared too much.
I think that is partly true. So I think the actual TVL of JLP is up about 70% in the last 3 months. And JLP itself, the yield is up about 35%. So a lot of money has gone into there. That being said, it had its best week for fees when everyone got liquidated at the start of this month, right? Like it was making 120%. So it's just because we've had this chop period that you've seen lower fees happening over that period. When you start to see volatility, which I think September could be, generally fees go up. But I would agree, you're not going to see the same heights, I would say, on that yield, just because the amount of money that's gone into it has gone more and more. But this is a particularly quiet period for it. Literally last month, it hit its all-time high, I think, for APY.
Also,
anyway,
it's hitting a max. Doesn't it hit a max of 700 million?
No, they just jacked it up. When I started, the max was 400.
700 million. So it's at 670 million. So it's nearly at its max.
There is some people who say that they will have a hard limit at some stage. And if they do have a hard limit, let's say the max is 700, then it could trade at a premium, right? It could trade at the XRP could trade at a premium. At every single time it's hit its max, since I've got into it, they've just increased the max. So I don't know, but maybe at some time they will. Anyway, just to go into the final point, because I think we're wrapping up to a certain extent, is September. September, traditionally, very volatile. I remember this from being a trader. You go back, everything starts going haywire, and then kind of settles down, and everything starts rallying towards the end of the year. What do you guys think for September going up? Well, we obviously have the rate cut starting. People have said that could be a wobble. Previous rate cut cycles have also led to a little bit of a wobble. You obviously have a slew of earnings now coming through. Traditionally, it's like a negative month, like we just said. Any of you worried about crypto for September, or are you feeling pretty chilled that we're about to go parabolic?
Well, let's go back 50, 70 years. S&P has been down in September 55% of the time, but not necessarily in election years. We're in an election year. Actually, that's 55%. I think it's since 1928, so we're talking 100 years. The problem is, I think we had our carry trade unwind, which was our kind of September kick in the teeth in early August. So I don't know. I think people are going to front run the election. They're going to see the liquidity, like I mentioned at the very beginning. And I think it could be a positive month. But historically for Bitcoin and crypto, it's the worst month. You can see here, the average is down 4.3% for the month. Now, if you look at the green on the left, they're the bull run years. 2012, down 10%. 2016, up 15%. 2020, up 28%. 2024, we shall see. Oh, I think I read the wrong months there. Hold on a second. 2012, 22%. 2016, 6%, positive, both positive. Now, we were down in 2020, down 7.5%. But 2020 was a manipulated year. It was also a C19 year. So put that away, take that with a grain of salt. 2024, August began down about 8 or 9%. Now it's only down 1%. So it's not that catastrophic at all. And when you look at where we are, where we're coming from, normally there's a maximum of 4 negative months a year for Bitcoin. We already have 3. That means there's only 1 more negative month possible. That's why I firmly believe the latter part of the year will be incredible.
Look at October. Look at October, and that's what stood out to me. Average of 28% higher. That's what I remember being traded. Like you always had these wobbles in September.
Yeah.
You always had these wobbles in September, and then the end of the year, everyone just decides that they want to get bullish again. So
I think go ahead. It kind of makes sense that coming from the corporate world, it kind of makes sense. If there is a problem during your vacation, so what you're going to do? You're going to fly back, leave the family at the resort, and go deal with it, or will you think I'll deal with it when I get back to the office? And most people choose the second one. So every problem usually comes in September. It doesn't really come in July. It doesn't come in August. It comes in September. When people are back from their vacation, all the problems come up. That's why markets tend to dump in September. It's not because of the moon phases. That's like a simple explanation. It's people. And then all that is sorted in September. All the problems are out of the way. And then in October, it kind of picks up. I have one interesting observation to share, though, if I can share the screen. And it is the yield chart, the 2-year US government yield. This chart has been very helpful, at least to me, over the past couple of years to get some kind of clues where the Bitcoin and other markets are going. And as you remember, this chart has been in this range for the longest time. And that's what broke down here in beginning of August. And then it hasn't climbed back. So it broke down and then something else happened. Here there is another short-term breakdown. I don't know if you can see it clearly here. I can change to shorter time frame, but there's like a head and shoulder here which broke down. So usually when this chart drops, that is positive for speculative assets. That macro environment where the yields are dropping tends to favor speculative assets like Bitcoin and stocks. And now this one is made another kind of breakdown signal. So that would be a positive signal, despite what I just said about September being a problem month. So if this one holds and turns down from here, if this kind of rejects here and moves down like this, I think we will see positive movements in speculative assets like Bitcoin. Of course, it doesn't work every time. Nothing works every time, but this has been helpful many times.
It definitely is. It's double. Your CT, you're dead right. It's double afterburners between rate cuts and liquidity. Risk on. That's the story today.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's been some. There you go.
Sorry, let me just wrap up for what I think September. I think, in my opinion, obviously we've got rate cuts kicking in. We've got China, Japan's doing their US collateral loans because Janet Yellen approved that. We've got US doing bond buybacks. So global liquidity is going up. It's going to probably go up towards 100 trillion. We've got those macro drivers going to September kicking into gear. But then I think we have token 2049 in crypto in Singapore. People don't know. On the 18th and the 19th is the largest crypto conference probably in history, together with Solana Breakpoint right after 20th and 21st, as well as the European Blockchain Convention is after that, 25th and 26th. So from the 18th to the 26th is crypto conferences outside the USA. People don't really realize. I think you're going to see a lot of surprising moves in a lot of altcoins. But as far as Bitcoin goes, I think it's now going to turn up towards testing the top of the range. Will be very exciting if we can time that with some Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen statements. Recently in Brazil, she said she wants 78 trillion to fight climate change. You didn't see that on US shores, but she definitely said that. I've got it on video. There's your number. I think she's printing 78 trillion. Okay, go ahead. Okay. So I think September could be the beginning of the banana zone as far as I'm concerned.
And quick forecast time. My bet for this month, not the week, but for the next 25 to 30 days, Solana is going to pump and it'll get close to $200. That's my big bet because of Breakpoint.
Because of Breakpoint.
And yeah, it always runs into Breakpoint. Always. Maybe this time is different, But
I mean,
there could be
James, if they launch Fire Dancer or just a demo of it with some form of speed, and it is, you know, mind-bogglingly fast, I think we go to all-time high in a matter of hours.
days. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're super bullish, guys. Clearly, yeah. Looks like even September is not going to throw us off. So we're even bullish going into Breakpoint. I agree. You've mentioned it a few times, Marty. And Breakpoint is, I guess, different than any other conference because they do save a lot of very major announcements for Breakpoint. It's not just another random meetup.
Speculation is they're going to show the new handheld game unit. They're going to show the second iteration of the Saga phone. They're going to unveil Fire Dancer. They're going to demonstrate ZK compression because people don't really understand that it's an actual revolution in blockchain. There's a lot of things happening at that event that, you know, other projects will then go, wow, okay, we've got to now build things like that. And it stimulates, Breakpoint tends to stimulate the engineering side of blockchain, which is fantastic because I'm an engineer. So it's kind of like our renaissance of technology this September. There we go.
All right, guys. Well, this has been an amazing roundup. I think we covered a lot. Again, I know we went slightly over, but hopefully you'll forgive us. Yeah, so go follow Marty on X. I know obviously James and CTO, they have their own YouTube channels. Go follow them. I think they also have their own private groups. I'm on X or my newsletter. But thanks again, and we will hopefully see you again next week. I think we'll have another host. But yeah, great show, and good to see you all again.
Thank you all. Great show.
Guys, thanks so much.
And thanks to the audience as well. Bye.
To the moon.
Thank you.